Hello, everybody. Star and Flurry here, coming at you with a VR. I think it's a really old one, but it's one I discovered this morning on YouTube when I was just hanging out with nothing better to do. And it was the one I watched was by the Oasis Spiritual Empowerment Tarot, and it was a VR to Hermit and the Simon at the Hermit's Cave regarding tarot tubers A to Z, and basically it was kind of a get to know you video of the people behind the tarot tubes. So while I'm super new at this, I have like 6 videos, 5, not many, brand new at this. I've never really done a proper introduction video, I don't think. I just kind of been recording these for a while and finally came up with one that I thought was okay, and so launched my tarot tube career with that one. So I don't think I ever did a real kind of intro. So I thought this would be a great way to do that. So tarot tube A to Z's. I got all my little decks that I'm going to show you out, so I don't have to mess with those. And this is my second time recording it because I'm new at this, and I occasionally let information slip out that I probably shouldn't, and so and my editing skills are for shit, and so I wasn't quite sure even how to edit it out. I mean, it was funny because I tried to edit it out, and I ended up editing everything else out, and all was left with one clip. So yeah, so that was ineffective. So anyway, so we're gonna just do it over because that's okay. I was telling kind of some stories that probably weren't worth listening to, so I don't want to waste your time here either. But okay, so I have my cheat sheet. I actually copied and printed what Simon had on his web, or on his description box below his VR, below his tag, which was, I think he did in 2020. So this is a couple, 2 years old. Okay, so it's basically A to Z. So he's got a letter, and for every letter in the alphabet from A to Z, he's got a prompt. So the first prompt is age. I am 68, just turned. The interesting story about that is I thought all last year I was 68. And then somewhere in like November, I was like, that doesn't add up. so I spent my whole year of 67 years old thinking I was 68. So, what a treat. So I get the whole year over again. So it's kind of like a do-over. So I'm fine with that. 68 years old. And I find it very difficult to believe that. I don't know where my 50s went. I mean, it's been a busy few years since 2015. But I can talk about that later. Coming up under C for career, so I'll get there. So B is for book, favorite book. So I think a book that everybody should read is called Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. It's so good. It's just a beautiful, well-written, fantastical novel, and it's worth your time reading it. I thoroughly enjoyed every moment of reading that book. But currently, my favorite author is a guy named Adrian McKinty. Now, not for the novels that he is known for in the U.S., which is The Chain and, what's the other one? The Island. The Island was okay. The Chain, no. But his Sean Duffy series and his Michael Forsythe series are just the bomb. Just the bomb. And for anybody who knows it, the bomb is like a clue. But anyways, they're exceptional books. I wouldn't call them thrillers. I wouldn't call them. I don't know what you'd call them. They're just so good. They're mysteries. There's usually a murder involved of some kind, and but they take place. These Sean Duffy series takes place in the 70s. I believe it's the late 70s, maybe early 80s in Ireland when the unrest was just outrageous. And Sean Duffy, the main character, is what they refer to as a peeler, or police officer in the area, just trying to keep the mayhem down to a reasonable thing. And of course, he's And I won't go into too much depth. It's just I can't recommend these books more highly. They're a wild romp. And the other thing is, I mean, they're a good read, but they're also an excellent book on tape. The narrator in the Sean Duffy series specifically is exceptional. One of the best I've ever heard, outside of the guy who did the first 9 or 10 books of Louise Penny novels. He was also excellent. But this guy, I don't know his name, but he's got this Irish brogue, and he is just really captures the essence of the Sean Duffy that's in your head. So he doesn't he doesn't add anything. He just captures the essence of that character, and I just can't speak more highly about the novels or the books on tape. So either way you go, they're great. So those are my books. Career you wanted to be when you were a kid, and what it is actually. So imagine my parents' dismay when in first grade, I think it was first grade, might have been second, where we were asked, as kids, we were painting, and we were asked to, what was it, tempera paints or whatever, and we were asked to paint what we wanted to be when we grew up. And so I came home with a painting of a waitress with a tray. My mom was like, oh, we need to work on her. I don't think they wanted me to grow up to be a food server. But there's nothing wrong with that. Believe it's good money. You get into the right restaurants, you can make a bundle of cash. So let me just say that. And back in my day when I started in that career, I mean, it was all tax-free too. Not anymore, but it was. It was a hell of a way to make money. Anyways, but that wasn't what I was thinking in first grade. What I was fascinated by in first grade was when you go into not the fast food, not like McDonald's, but the fast foods like Denny's, places where you would sit down. We did a lot of car traveling when I was a kid, and so like down to the Southwest and places like that. And so we ate in a lot of these little diners, and I was always just so impressed with how they would slap the silverware down on the table, and it would all be, immediately organized. Napkins, silverware, everything's perfect. Like, so efficient. I was, like, amazed by that. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And that's why I wanted to get into that profession, to be able to do that. Simple wants. What's wrong with that? Anyways, so that's what I wanted to be. And that's what I ended up in. I ended up, started kind of just at fast food as a young 16-year-old trying to earn money. And my first wage was $1.25 an hour. Oh my God! And then I remember when I got my first raise to $1.50 an hour, I thought I was like in the money. It was just crazy. But anyways, worked my way through college, kind of doing the the restaurant thing or whatever. And then during the summers, I would work for a guy and his partner in Portland in their restaurants, and I really kind of learned the ropes with them each summer. And I just got better and better at it. And then when I graduated, when I was graduating from college, I wanted to get back to LA, but I needed some cash to kind of get started. And so they gave me a call and said, what are you doing? And I said, well, right now, nothing. And they said, great, we've got a server, our head food server is going on vacation for a couple of weeks or leave of absence or something. We need somebody to take over for her. Are you interested? And I was like, well, what do I get for doing that? And they go, well, you get the best shifts, highest wage I'd ever been offered in a position like that, and the best shifts, and, you kind of get to run the show. And I was like, well, I'm in. Because I thought, good, I can make the money that I need to get back down to LA. So I got into that position, did that job, had a great time. Of course, met lots of people, made lots of friends, and then it turns out she decides to leave. She's going to go do something else. And so they offered the position full-time to me if I wanted to stay. And it was just kind of too good to turn, I couldn't turn it, for me, in my mind, I couldn't turn it down. It was a great offer. And at that point, I'd kind of established myself. I grew up in the area, so I was, I knew where I was. I was familiar with the area. When I went to school in LA, I was really outside of the main city. So I honestly don't, when I think back on it now, I don't know what I was planning on doing. Because, I think I thought about graduate school, but I just didn't think I was real serious about it. So, who knows? Anyway, so, I had a lot of friends down there, but they were also all graduating. And kind of scattering to the wind. So it was kind of like if I'd gotten down there, they all would have left eventually. So it was kind of like, yeah, it just didn't make sense for me to do that. So I ended up staying and ended up staying with the company for 12 years. And then through a series of circumstances, ended up finally finding something in Seattle, which is where I wanted to live. I attended a wedding up there of a friend, and I just fell in love with the city. I was born there, going home basically. And so I worked, kind of decided I was going to try to find a job in Seattle, and I ended up finding a great one. They took me on, and ended up staying with that company for a lot for the rest of my career. And I started out in management, worked my way up general management, and then eventually got into, became their director of banquet services for the 3 full service restaurants. I loved that job, absolutely loved it, and I've mentioned it a few times in prior videos, and it changed my life. Getting out of mayhem of floor management work, and more behind the scenes. We're working more one-on-one with guests and things like that. It just made a huge difference for me completely, and I enjoyed that job for a very long time. And then the company went through some structural changes, and it just changed. It's just a series of unfortunate events occurred. Not to mention financial events, but also events within the company that just changed, altered, kind of altered it in a way that I didn't feel was good. I felt it was destructive to the company. I just didn't believe in it anymore, and so I really began to hate my job. In the meantime, my dad is in Portland, aging. My mom had died several years prior, and he was managing fine. But then, suddenly he's in his late 80s, and life is getting harder. Going to the grocery. He was still driving at this point, but walking a lot more than driving. He had a grocery store right down the street, so he would do that, and he stayed very fit. And he walked up until probably he was 90, maybe late 80s more, walking 2 miles a day. We had some incidents with him kind of getting stuck on mountain hills and things like that. Like all of a sudden he can't move. But he always lucked out. He always, had lucky strangers showed up and got him home. But yeah. So anyway, I kind of asked him at one point, do you, how would you feel if I maybe came down and helped you out? And it was like, yes, please. It was just yes. So it was just a win-win for both of us. I was ready to get out of the company I had been with for a very long time, get out of that kind of work. It's just so stressful all the time. Anybody who's done that kind of work knows. It's just, you think it's nothing, but it's not nothing. It is, especially these particular restaurants. They're huge. I mean, 350 seats. We, do on a normal busy summer night, we do 1,200 covers. And it was crazy. And it was just, I was just ready to be done. Years and years of that. You get to a point where you just are over it. You talk about cranky old people. The reason they're cranky is because they're just sick of the shit. They're sick of it. And that's kind of where I was getting to a point too. It's just like, I am over all your wants and needs and petty requests. And I had one woman who was trying to put together a rehearsal dinner for her son. We specialized in seafood. We're a Pacific Northwest seafood restaurant. That's what we did. And she wants to put together this banquet of 60, which is right in our wheelhouse, perfect, blah, blah, blah. But she's from the South, and so she wanted a fried chicken Southern meal. And I said, man, we just don't do that. And she goes, well, could you? And I go, no. And it's just, well, why not? And I go, well, I think there's plenty of restaurants in the Seattle area that might be able to accommodate a Southern style meal. Or have you thought about catering a picnic? Bringing in Kentucky Fried Chicken or whatever kind of chicken fried thing you want. But we simply don't do that. And your son didn't pick this restaurant to have a chicken dinner. He picked it to have a Pacific Northwest salmon dinner. So I would suggest that's what you do. But this is the kind of crap. Back then, I was fine with having that chat with her. But, in my waning years, it would have been like, no, we don't do that. What are you talking about? I never said that to anybody. I was very good at my job. But there was times when you're just like, rrr. Anyways. So that's what I ended up doing. Ended up leaving there, and as my dad used to say, I said, "Well, I retired in 2015," but actually, my dad says, "Well, yeah, you did, but you also took on another client, which was him, which is true." So there's that. So D is for dream. What's your dream? I think I'm living it right now. I think being retired is the best thing that ever happened to me. Being able to have 3 years with my dad is just something I'm so thankful for, that I had that time with him. I mean, we used to say to each other, "Thank God we get along," because we did. We always got along. When I was growing up, it wasn't like we were best friends. We just kind of understood each other. My mom and I were really butted heads for whatever reasons, and I'm sure I'll get into that at some point down the road. But my dad and I very rarely butted heads about anything, and we just got along. We had the same interests, blah, blah, blah. So when this situation came up, it boded very well that we had that history, and the nice thing was that it didn't change. As we got to know each other even better in closer circumstances, we just got closer. So it was a good thing. And then after he died, it was kind of like, okay, now what? Now what? Now I'm really retired. And Dad always talked about retiring gracefully. I was like, okay, that's the plan. I need to retire gracefully. And I think I succeeded. I was going to stay in Portland for a while. I didn't want to make any sudden moves. I mean, I'd been kind of, in a solid relationship with my father for the last 3 years. It was pretty close and pretty regimented, and we had a routine. And when you get into that kind of routine in a caregiving pattern like that, it's kind of hard to break out of it, just, like that. And even though his death was coming, and I knew that, it's still a shock when it happens. Anybody who's been through this knows that. So I told myself I wasn't going to make any big changes for a year. Just, regroup, settle down, figure out what you want to do. And then about 8 months later, I packed up and moved to my new city in Central Oregon. I was trying to figure out where I wanted to live. I knew it wasn't Portland. I'd moved away from there before. I loved Seattle dearly, but I couldn't afford it any longer, really. And the honest to God truth is, I was kind of sick of it. And when you're there for a reason, you kind of put up with the junk, with the traffic, and just everything that goes along with a big city. I know a lot of people rank on Seattle, but it's a beautiful city. It really is. It has its issues, but it's a beautiful city. But yeah, I just was like, I don't think I'm ready I just don't want to go back to a big city. But, getting to Portland was interesting because it's a smaller city. And so I could move around a little easier, and I really appreciated that. And when I finally decided to move to an even smaller city, I thought this is a good thing. This is right up your alley, which it was. And I kept waiting for that shoe to drop, for me to kind of go, oh God, what have you done? And a lot of people are like, you did what? What? Where? Why? It was like, what are you doing? Like, she's gone a little off the deep end. But the truth is that I thought about it for so long. This wasn't it wasn't like this sudden decision. I mean, I'd been thinking, I knew my dad was going to pass away. I had to have a plan of some kind. That's what I did for a living. I planned things. So that's what I did. So I'd spent a lot of time, and even my sister-in-law down the road said, I know that it seems like it's out of the blue, but it isn't. You've been thinking about this for a very long time. And I go, yes. And when it was time to finally take action, that's what I do. I just do it. Don't sit around, just do it. So I did, and it was the best move I've ever made in my life, ever. And I as I said, once I moved and I got everything here, and I was unpacking, and I kept waiting for that, what do they call that? That dread of, oh God, what have I done? I made the bad decision. What do they call that? Second thoughts, whatever. And they just never came. I was so happy to be here. And every day I drive around, or wherever I'm going, there's a moment that I don't think to myself, I am so glad I'm here. I love this place. I love where I am. So, D, that was D. E, essential item. My computer and the internet. There's just, with those two things, and a roof over my head, those are my essential items. I don't need much else. Those are the things that keep me happy. F, favorite RWS deck. My favorite RWS deck is Conrad Stein deck that I got from Make Playing Cards. Can never remember the name of it, but I'll leave the link down below. It's this one. It's a pocket-sized yellow crackle with kind of the blue ombre on top. It's just a standard RWS. Most of his decks are a little more muted. This one is probably the most colorful of the ones he has. And I love it. It's just, and it's funny because I can say pretty honestly, I use more indie decks than anything else. I'm not wed to the RWS in any way, shape, or form. But I have come to enjoy this deck quite a bit, and I think the biggest reason is the size. I mean, my hands are just like a quarter inch too short for regular tarot cards. And so to have a tarot deck that I could fit in my hands, that I could shuffle easily, love it. So that's my favorite RWS deck. Gold, or so for G, is gold or silver. If I was investing, gold. Do not invest in silver. I am no expert. That is my opinion. But I think it's a smart opinion. So, but for wearing, always silver. 925 sterling. I love it. It's affordable. It works on my skin. The gold always kind of, I don't know, I kind of have a olive yellowy skin, and I just never liked it on me. But I love silver on me, so I wear it a lot. My height is 4'11". Well, officially it was 4'11 and a half. But so the story is that when I was probably 16, I mean, so we're talking what? I'm trying to think. So probably, early 70s, I had lost my driver's license. And back in those days in Oregon, it was just literally a piece of paper. And kind of pink or reddish or whatever with the state of Oregon logo on it. Basically hand typed. I mean, it's like, it was nothing super official. Not like it was, and they had no pictures or anything on it. Just date of birth, address, name, height, and color of eyes. So I lost my ID, so I went into the little DMV in our little city south of Portland to get a new driver's license. And the guy was in there, and he's, I don't even know how they would figure out who you were or how, because again, they didn't have computers. I don't know, maybe there was a file on my thing on file or whatever. But anyway, so he's got his back to me, and he's typing up, he rolls in this little card that he's going to type on to be my driver's license. And he's like, name, and I give it to him, his last name, give it to him, and then he types in the address, and I type it in. And then he goes, Kaya color, green, weight, at that time, 110 pounds. And then height, and I said 4'11 and a half. And he kind of stops. And I could see him kind of go like this, and he turns around and he says, I don't really have a half button on my typewriter, so you're either going to have to be 4'11 or 5 feet. Which do you want? And so I thought about it for a second. I said 4'11, and he just went, good for you. Embracing the shortness, because why not? So that's probably pretty accurate right now, now that you're aging. Anyways, so I thought that was really funny. So I got my driver's license, and there it has stayed, 4'11 my entire life. So that's my height. I, for ideal day, would be to be sitting in front of my fake fire or my real fire and watching it snow. Even with the potential of having to go out and shovel snow or snow blow, it doesn't bother me. I love doing that. It's my favorite thing to do. So yeah, that's my ideal day. I turn into a third grader when it starts to snow. I just want to dial up the radio and see if my school's going to be closed. I just turn into a kid, and I just love it. I love watching it fall. I love walking around in it, and being on this side of the Cascades is so much different than on the west side. The snow over there is generally super wet, super heavy. It's just a pain to deal with. But out here, generally, this year's been a little bit different. Thank you, global warming. But normally, it's a nice dry powder that falls. So it's really, in fact, the last time we had a little snowfall, I always have to keep my driveway clear because it's on the north side of my house, and so it never thaws. And if I don't be mindful of it, it turns into just a skating rink, and it's just enough of a slope that it can become an issue if you're trying to get a vehicle in and out of the garage. And so I'm always on top of it. But this last snowfall we had, I saw my neighbor out there with just a leaf blower. That's how light and fluffy the snow was. And I thought, well, shoot, I have one of those. I'll give that a try. So I did. So I just blew it off. That's how dry it was. Oh, God, it was great. So that's my ideal date. Funniest joke. J is for joke. So the joke is that I got from my nephew when he was 8. We got to know each other. He was down in LA. My only nephew. And we bonded over, he was teaching me how to play Pokemon on Game Boy. And so I would frequently have to call him and say, hey, I'm in the blah, 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 and I'm at the rock wall, but I can't find the super egg or whatever it is. He goes, well, where are you standing? And I tell him, and he goes, okay, you need to go down 4 steps to the right and then kick the stone. So I'd go down 4 steps, kick the stone, and boop, up, whatever I needed, the magic mushroom or whatever it was. And I was like, thank you. And he's like, you're welcome. Bye. So this went on for a good year. It was just hysterical. It was so much fun. I enjoyed the game. Sorry, my nose is just being weird today. Allergies or something. Anyways, so the phone rings once. He rarely was calling me for advice. I don't know if he ever did. But anyways, the phone rang, and it was Robert. And I'm like, hello? And he's like, hi, Nancy. So I have a joke for you. I'm like, okay. And so the joke is, how many Pikachus, or wait, how do you get 1,000 Pikachus on a bus? And I was like, I don't know. How do you get 1,000 Pikachus on a bus? He goes, you Pokemon. I've never forgotten that joke. I laughed so hard. And he was like, okay, bye. He hangs up. And I could hear his parents cracking up in the background. He wasn't a chatter, so we weren't going to chat. He just wanted to tell me that joke and then hang up. And I just, God bless him. So I've never forgotten that joke because I thought it was a great joke. So that's my joke. So K is for kids. I do not have any kids. L is for living arrangements. I live in a house, east side of the Cascades, Central Oregon, that I absolutely love, and I live by myself, which is a requirement, and I love it. Favorite M is for Marseille deck. My favorite Marseille deck is the Marshmallow Marseille by the Wandering Oracle. These are the backs. Let's see if I can get the... Aren't those pretty? It is not edged, but these cards are just so great, and they're so colorful. And again, it's a pocket-sized deck, so I can shuffle it with ease. The nicest devil on the planet. I love the World card. So that's my favorite Marseille deck. The Marshmallow Marseille by the Wandering Oracle. N is for nicknames. I don't really have any. I had a friend of mine for many years call me Nana. Nana. My full name's Nancy. My family calls me Nan. And I call myself Nance. So that's what they say. You always have 3 names. The name your family calls you, the name your friends call you, and the name you call yourself. So Nan, Nancy, Nance. are the three names. No nicknames really though. I did in my college. There was a lot of other Nancys. I was born in the 50s, and so I went by my last name to distinguish myself. So I still have friends today that refer to me only by my last name, which is kind of great. It just warms my heart. It takes me back 50 years or however long it is. But I don't think of that as a nickname because it's my last name. So O is for Oracle. I have two that I love. Inner Compass Oracle. I talk about it all the time. Heather Hopes. It's just an Oracle deck I can deal with. I love the keywords are just simple. Well, that one, simplicity, gratitude. I think that's what that says. Yeah, gratitude, manifestation. I love this one. Divine timing. All the clocks in the Saturn. Success. Transformation. Anyways, I just love this deck. I use this as kind of to jumpstart my tarot readings and oftentimes to clarify them after them. And the other one is the Antiquities and Magic Oracle. You're all familiar with this too, Jillian Wild. And it really is an oracle deck of imagery or symbology from the Rider-Waite. And so it actually helps teach you what those symbols mean. So this is fish is the intuition. Snail for persistence. Isn't there a king or someone who has a little snail down at his feet? Lobster for inner growth, like on the moon. Lizard for renewal. Grape. I love this. Is one of my favorite cards. I think just because of the colors. For blessings. So yeah, this is just a great clarifying type of oracle deck that I love. So I use that one a lot. Oh, P. What are you passionate about? Well, right now I'm kind of passionate about tarot. I'm really trying to learn it. And I know I'm super new. And I know that there's probably people from the tarot tube community who are watching and going, oh God, but it's, you're learning. That's what you do. We were all there at one time. I actually dabbled with tarot a long time ago, and I'm just kind of coming into it. I didn't do any in-depth studies at all. I was just kind of fascinated by it. But it's kind of come back into my life because I have time to kind of think about it and, spend time actually studying it. So that's been really fun. I'm also passionate about fragrances. Now, I'm not one of those people who and then walks into a theater or something. Those people drive me just as crazy as they probably drive you. But to me, people think fragrances are stupid, but they're just as nuanced as a wine, in terms of how they're constructed, how they last. Fragrances have, they have top notes, middle notes, and bottom notes, and they're all different based on the longevity of that fragrance. They're all, the whole thing together is one thing, has a longevity, a sillage they call it, there's longevity, and then there's sillage, which is how far out does it go, basically. Do you leave a trail behind you, kind of thing? I try not to do that because that's just rude. But there's other, things like skin scents, which just have almost no sillage at all, except to you. But they're fun too because there's like, oh, I can't stop smelling myself. Ooh, I smell so good. Things like that. So I know it's kind of weird, and it's certainly changed. Well, the whole industry has changed over time. I mean, so many. I think the European Union has put in so many restrictions now in terms of what they can use, that most of the fragrances are built upon synthetics, and the sad part is that a lot of the really exceptional fragrances just aren't, think like oak moss are just not allowed to be used anymore, and that's really sad. So, but it's, to me, it's still a fascinating thing. So, when somebody tells you they're into fragrances, don't just go, ugh, it's there's a lot more going on in that whatever study than just the smell. There's more to it than that. So I'm passionate about that too. So Q is for quote. So I have one that sticks with me. I have a whole file of quotes that have interested me from years ago or even currently that I think are exceptional, and things that I want to keep in mind, and blah blah blah. But the one that sticks with me the hardest and the longest was one that upon my coming home from school one day, I was probably a second grader, third grader, maybe even fourth grader. I'd had a particularly rotten day. Short people get picked on. Doesn't change when you get older, just might add. You just become more invisible. But, I mean, for example, I was at, I've told this story before, but I don't know if I posted it. But I was at a Nordstrom's one day and with, the epitome of customer service. And I walked up to the counter, had a sweater in my hand that I wanted to purchase. And the woman at the counter looks to the woman behind me. Says, "Can I help you?" And I was like, and I turned to look at the one behind me, and she's like, "I don't know where that's coming from." And I turned back around, and I am usually not very obnoxious when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I looked at her and I said, "I'm sorry, am I invisible?" And the woman at the counter was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I just feel like I didn't even see you." And I'm like, "So I was invisible." And the woman behind me is like, I can see you just fine." I'm like, "Thank you." So I bought what I bought, but I was like, welcome to your 60s, Nancy, because this is what it's going to be like. And then you add in, being the size of an 8-year-old, and that doesn't help either. So there's that. But anyway, so I come home from school one day, a little beaten and bruised up for whatever reason. It may have involved me hitting someone. I don't recall the specifics. I didn't get sent home. I mean, that's the good news. I wasn't expelled or anything, but I had a rough day. And so my dad was out on the patio, and he was having a cocktail, and he puts me up on his knee, and he says, "I'm going to teach you a quote, and I want you to remember it for the rest of your life." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog." And I've never forgotten that for as long as I lived. And I say it to myself frequently. I also got louder that day, I think. You just have to, when you're this high at that age, you have to kind of, you can't get physically powerful, so you have to, develop that powerful voice. And then when you get to your 60s, you need your voice to be seen, which is just sad. But that's the way it is. So, R, relationship status. I am very single, and I'm very happily single. Season. My season is winter. Hands down. I love thick sweaters. I love hats. I love jackets. I love boots. Everything about winter is my season. Give me snow any day. Tarot. First deck and last deck. This is not officially the first deck, this particular physical copy, but this is the first deck I had, which the plaid back standard, get the right side up here, standard rider weight with the obnoxious yellow cards. I do like the Hermit, but yeah, so you're all familiar with this deck. I don't need to show anything more. So that was my very first tarot deck. I do not know what happened to that first deck. It's long gone, but I did buy a replacement just to honor it. My most recent deck is my Fyodor Pavlov tarot deck, which, by the way, I should show this. I've just got a beautiful bag in Portland. I'll show these together. They just, they go so well together. And the deck fits perfectly. I was so worried because I was kind of a blind buy where it came to size. Did I have the deck with me? I think I did bring it with me, but I didn't know if it would fit. So I was so excited when it did. Anyways, you're all familiar with this deck. These are the backs. The only downside is the U.S. Games logo, of course, right there. I wish they would stop that. I don't know what else they could do that's gets their logo out there without being obnoxious, but at least it's not on the front side of the cards, so I'm glad about that. But here's the deck. This deck is experiencing a fair amount of popularity right now, and I'm thrilled for that because I think it's a great deck. Lisa Pepez just did a really interesting walkthrough on this deck, and what made it a special walkthrough is she just, as she's card by card by card, she's just falling in love with it slowly but surely, and it was really precious to watch her go through that. It was really neat. And some of her insights, of course, some of her comments are always so insightful to me. I love listening to her comments, and she's so basically unfiltered about them, and I love that as well. But anyways, this is a beautiful deck. Can't go wrong. It is beautiful quality. It's kind of a linen. It feels like a linen deck. Beautiful quality. Gold. Actually, the gilding is quite nice on it too. Not sticky at all. And that universe is reminding me to let you know about the beautiful deck or book that comes with it. Hardback. Good information on this book. The author spends time talking about why his art is the way it is, what his knowledge of the card is, or how he interprets it, and then how he interpreted it artistically. And it's just beautifully written and very informative. And so I really, as a learner, as a apprentice to this tarot thing, I'm very excited to have him as a mentor through this book because it's really interesting. So that, let me set that aside. So that was tarot. Upset. What upsets you the most? Technology that doesn't work. Technology that's put out before it should be. That kind of stuff can bring tears of frustration to my eyes. When things just don't, like light bulbs, for God's sakes. Light bulbs that you need to connect to an app to make work, but it doesn't want to connect to the app. Stop that. Then don't sell that light bulb. Wait until it works. Yes, I've had experience with this. No, it was not operator error. It can be. But in this case, in the light bulb case, it was not. But yeah, so just things that don't work. When you're trying to set up a TV and it just won't do what it's supposed to do. Or cable. For instance, I just had to switch over my entire cable thing, which was fine. I ended up saving like $80, which was great. But the universal remote that comes with it will not program into my soundbar. It'll turn it on and off, but it won't adjust the volume. So I call the cable company to kind of walk me through it, and she decides, after all, she basically walks me through everything I've already done. Because, they give you a thing that says how to do it, and it just simply is not doing it. Putting in the codes and doing all that. She goes, well, let's go up and restart your router. I'm like, no, we're not going there. That the router is not about the universal remote and the soundbar. We're not going there. No, I just got this up and running. It's always a fiasco. Forget it. I'll just add a remote to my routine. So now I turn on my TV. The TV and the soundbar comes on, and I have to handle the volume with a separate remote. Fine, whatever. But it's annoying as frick. And that kind of stuff. I'm past that now. It's solved. But it was very frustrating when it was happening. It's just like, God. So that's what gets me. So technology doesn't work. Vlog. V is for vlog. it says, which are you most proud of and which is your most popular? Well, I don't have a real catalog of videos yet. I've just started. I have maybe 5. But to answer honestly, the one I'm most proud of is probably the last one I did, which is about my kind of epiphany. It was the first time I actually read cards that kind of made sense to me. And I was like praying for the day that I would be able to do that. And so I did that. I don't know if it's going to continue, but it did it that day pretty easily with the help of my oracle cards. And so I was really happy about that. And I was proud of that video that I documented that on. The most popular one I have is one that I did, VR that I did to the Deck Crush tag, which was for kind of a Valentine's Day related thing that was put out by Lisa Papez, Teresa Marlena, Dustin at Modern Metaphysique, and Danny Mystic. And that was really fun. And that's gotten the most views because it's a popular VR, I think. So I lucked up there. W for weakness. What is my weakness? Probably wine. I like wine. I used to, I could drink a lot of it back in the day. It was like drinking juice. It is juice. Grape juice. And I can't do that at 68 anymore, but I do love it. So that would probably be my biggest weakness. X is for X-rated. Tell us something naughty you have done. I can honestly say that I've not done anything naughty. I'm just not that person. Fairly conservative in that regard. They have them now on the internet, but even when I was in college, every once in a while you'd get this slip of paper that had like 50 things on it, like skinny dipping, smoking cigarettes, doing drugs, this list of horrible things, not horrible things, but just a list of kind of things. And the higher your points, the worse you were, the lower your points, the more virtuous you were. And I always scored really low on those things because I just didn't do a lot of that. I never did drugs. I never skinny dipped. I never did anything along those lines ever. So I just have not done anything seriously X-rated, which I guess I'm kind of proud of. It's like, I remember when I was a teenager and hanging out with people in high school, and my mom at one point said, I don't want you hanging out with them anymore. And I go, why? And she goes, because I think they're a bad influence on you. And I go, I wasn't doing drugs. They were. I wasn't. I was too scared to do that stuff, I just wouldn't. I'm just by nature not a very brave person. And so experimenting and stuff like that, no thanks. Altering my mind, no. I have enough time controlling what's going on inside of it right now. I don't want anything getting in there mucking it up. Yeah. And so I looked at her and I said, did it ever occur to you that I might be a good influence on them? And she was like, she did not know what to say to that. We actually had a good chuckle about that because she said, no, I have not. I did not think about it that way at all. But and it turns out that I don't know if I was a particularly good influence on them, but they were not a bad influence on me. I was not able to be influenced in that regard along those lines. So we were good. So Y is for yesteryear. Yesteryear, which says, what is your favorite year so far and why? And I will tell you honestly, it's this year right now. I love being fully retired from work. I don't know how people find the time to do that. And people are like, aren't you bored? I'm like, God, bored? No. What are you talking about? There's always something to be done. Well, I own a home, so there's that alone, always something to be done. But, I am loving life right now. I really am. In Knockwood, I'm very fortunate to be kind of living the life that I want. I don't have many aspirations beyond really what I'm doing right now, except living a healthy, life as I go forward. You know, but both my parents lived to ripe old age. My dad was 93 when he died. His father was like 87. He died. My mom's my mom's grandmother, the woman basically who raised her, was 93. And everybody kind of gets old in our family, so I'm not going to wood that I'm one of them too, even though my lifestyle is not conducive to that, but we'll see. Let's hope. And then Z is for Zen. We're at the end. Z is for Zen. What do you do to relax and stay calm? Well, I indulge in my weakness on occasion. But it is not natural for me to be relaxed and calm. I am generally spun tighter than a drum, especially when I was working. But even now, I still am. And I would say to myself, you know, people think I'm calm on the outside, but you ought to see the carnival going on inside. It's just it's always something. So it is just not natural for me to be calm and relaxed. I just not in my nature to do that. But I do enjoy a glass of wine on occasion. Snow shoveling or plowing, snow blowing. That's very zen to me, very calming. I like that. I'm a film buff, so I can put on a movie and that'll bring me down to, you know, kind of to a nice flow space. I'm not a meditator necessarily. Um, But it's something on my list of things that I might kind of want to start trying because I think that might be very healthy for me to do. Um, and I do like to throw cards. I mean, they give me great pleasure, and I enjoy learning about that. So that's part of how I relax. So that's pretty much it. So that's me, A to Z, per per Simon's list from the Hermit's Cave. So thank you to Simon for this great VR, and thank you to the Oasis Spirited Empowerment Tarot for reinvigorating it, at least for me to see, for it to pop into my whatever that's called on YouTube when it pops up, and pointing me. So I watched her video and then pointing me to Simon's, which I also watched. And I'm looking forward to watching more and more because it is interesting to learn more about people. So that's it from here. I hope I didn't stay too long-winded. Thanks for stopping by. Star and Flurry out.